Hello, 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 hello. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How are we today, my friends? My droll, Dr. Olay, my guy. Love you, buddy. Good to see you. Good morning, man. Full-time Reds. Hello, guys. Good morning, all of you. Welcome. Welcome. Where's the suit? I didn't actually want. I'm not actually gonna wear a suit for Ten Hag sacking. It's an amazing morning. Bye bye Bozo. I think obviously that's a lot of the sentiment here. People are on the side of this. This happens a lot. This happens a lot for me. Waking up at 5 in the morning and there's some huge news and like why can't you wait? Why can't you do it late at night, like at midnight or something, or at 2 a.m. UK time? So it's like just a normal evening for me. A normal evening for me instead of 5 in the morning. Why not do it last night? Why not do it last night? The sun is barely coming up behind me over here, but I had to get to work to do videos. We're free. Yeah. Look, Rashford fan channel, maybe. Yeah, I'll give a few people in here to get in, and then I want to talk it through everything that's happened, as well as where are we gonna go from here? Because it's where are we gonna go from here? Right? Is obviously the most important thing, because at the end of the day, this is 5 months late. 5 months late. James, Riddy's on the pod tomorrow discussing new manager options. Got any questions you want to put to him? I'll get back to you on that. I'll message you on Twitter, okay? It's 5 months late, and unfortunately, we're in the. This was on kind of the worst case scenario. Kind of the worst case scenario that they messed this up in summer and led into the year where then they have to make a change come October, end of October. And they knew they had to make a change over a month ago, maybe even earlier than that, frankly. And they messed it up. I mean, they messed this up. So it is what it is in that expectation. I think everyone needs to chill a little bit. It's good news, but it's not going to be long-term instant fix. Patience is still needed. Yes. Halftime Oranges, thanks for joining, buddy. 7 points off top 4 and 4 off top 8 in Europa. Salvageable. King Rollo, please give me some good news on Nagelsmann. I will talk to all of them. But do you want the big spoiler? Because our next manager, I've been hinting at it for months. It's not Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, okay? No, anyway, there's no big spoiler. James Voldemort is Garn. Do we get a Hunte stance? Maybe privately. Maybe privately cruel. Look, I've made my feelings clear on this whole Solskjaer thing. I know people love him. Let's leave him as a legend. Happy Monday. I don't think he's the right person to come back to fix this team. That is for sure. I'm going to go through all of the managers in a minute because I don't think the answer is clear yet. But just give me time. I will get too distracted. Obviously, there's a lot going on. I want to get through it. One second. And I apologize if I pause in the middle because I'm obviously waiting for messages from different people on different subjects. So there will be times that I'm distracted just as I get through this. So let's start, right? Obviously, I wanted to remain pretty respectful of things last year. Through everything that happened, I tried to. Everybody knows, if you've been watching my videos since March last year, Ten Hag was gone, way back then, and there was a whole host of reasons for it. The initial inclination from Ineos as they came in was simply that they wanted to be able to get their own person. And really, they should have stuck with that. Because the problem you have here is, no matter what happens, and no matter what happened, Ten Hag's not their guy, never was their guy, and it was doomed from the start. He knew it, they knew it, everyone knew it, and it was a marriage of convenience is never enough in a high-level operating thing. In any sort of high-level operations and any sort of high-level business, you cannot have a situation where someone exists just by default. And they went through systematically, obviously, cleaning out everybody that they could from all the different positions at the club. Besides the manager during last season, they were never going to sack him during the year. That was never the intention last year, because there was really, really no point. Good morning, not happy, but we're spinning nowhere at the moment, so I'll accept. Hopefully it doesn't set us back. But there were a lot of reasons for this. Alex Raha, welcome. Thank you for joining, my friend. Appreciate it. There was a lot of reasons for this. And when they appointed, but they also, I want to make something really, really clear as well. And why, I've had a lot of people begging me, why aren't you attacking Ineos more about all of this? Why aren't you jumping down on them about, not stepping in and sacking the manager? And the point was always this: you don't want them to do that. Thanks, James. Keep up the great work. Appreciate it. You don't want them to do it. You do not want Ineos to step in and overstep. You don't want them to overstep. They wanted to appoint people to make these decisions. Jim Ratcliffe, you don't want Sir Dave Brailsford making decisions at this club. He's one of 3 people on the football board. You don't want him making decisions at this club. From a football standpoint, you want them making decisions about the stadium. You want them making decisions about sponsors. You want them making decisions about these overall running processes at the club. You don't want them making the decisions on who the manager is, on transfers, on things like that. That is the Glazer way of doing things. And I do find the comments on that a little bit ironic, because people are wanting them to step in like the Glazers would have. But they appointed Jason Wilcox to assess everything, and Jason Wilcox's review was extremely scathing. I don't want to get too far on this, but he was incredibly unimpressed by practically everything. There were fallouts with many, many, many players. Rafael Varane, Casemiro, with professionals, guys who've won titles, won Champions League at the greatest club in the world, over the last 20 years in Real Madrid, or 15 years probably in Real Madrid, and obviously one of the top of all time, who were like, this is ridiculous, and felt, insulted by these things. And these are the types of relationships you cannot fail with. You cannot be that bad, with these types of players. Light's a little bright. Yeah, he liked the Sacks post. I know. And he was fed up with it. A lot of players were fed up with it. It's not about turning on the manager and downing tools. Every manager in every position at any job has to be able to get along with people. I mean, at the end of the day, it's an interpersonal relationship you're building with people. It's supposed to be a team. You're not a slave driver. You're supposed to be a team, and you're supposed to work with people, and you want them to back you, and you want to back them. It's not ruling with an iron fist. And that was a huge, huge issue. That was a huge, huge issue. It has nothing to do with ability. It has nothing to do with ability and play, and that Varane's career was nearing its end. It's about the way you treat people that leads to whether they, how much confidence can they have in you, and how much, fight can they have in you. So, You know, the fact that Ashworth Barada had permission to sack Ten Hag without calling a wider meeting proves Ineos personally get involved. Exactly. So they, you know, basically, you know, it was very negative at that point in time. And obviously they started interviewing candidates last year. They went through all of it, blah, blah, blah. We know, but they did not manage to hire a replacement for Ten Hag. Now, I want to make something extremely clear, and I've said this a few times, but I want to make it explicitly clear. They offered the job to no less than 3 people in summer. Okay? So despite all of the things that happened, that's why it took so long. That's why it was kind of a disaster, and that's why I said this was essentially doomed. They didn't do this big review and say, yep, Ten Hag is our guy. They did this big review, they went out, and they failed with... Okay, I'll go through the names now because then it'll be relevant. Okay, I'll go through those people. 1, they contacted Julian Nagelsmann last year. I think I covered this, actually. They contacted Julian Nagelsmann last year, someone they really like. He turned them down and committed himself more to Germany. Obviously had a good Euros. His contract's been extended through the World Cup. He made clear that that was his intention. I would be surprised if that changes. Okay? So that was... they would have offered him the job. I don't know if they explicitly offered him the job, but they made it clear they would. They offered... they spoke with Xabi Alonso or people around Xabi Alonso, and he made clear that his intention in the long term, or at least their understanding, is for him to join Madrid. And that's still his intention, for the most part, is to join Real Madrid whenever Carlo Ancelotti leaves. So, you know, if that's in 2026 or if that's sooner, then that is still his main intention. Could they convince him? Maybe. And as I understand it, he would still be very, very high up the list. Also for Manchester City, he's very high up the list. So a difficult one. Now, if Carlo Ancelotti were to leave a little bit sooner, maybe he would come into the picture. I actually don't know on that, but who knows? They spoke with Hoeneß last season as well, prior to summer, who did not want the role. They spoke with Thomas Tuchel, who turned them down explicitly multiple times. So there was a lot of managers that they spoke to and did not get it done. You know, we nabbed Euro for Madrid, so let's do it again. Right. There was a lot of managers that they spoke to but could not get it done. Now, this was without Barada being able to talk to people directly. This was without, obviously, Ashworth in the building as of yet. And, of course, there were concerns as, you know, they were owners. You know, again, they want these football people involved to be making these decisions, to be hiring people, to be doing this. So they were not in a good position for it, and I don't think that they had, I don't think they had the structures and the things that they are in place to present the right job to somebody. So after all that, you know, they came back to Ten Hag and said, okay, well, crap, we don't have somebody. We don't have anybody. So we're going to go back to Ten Hag. And we have to make some promises. Now, as you'll know, both sides could not come to terms over a contract agreement, which, as I said, was going to be the problem all along. They wanted to change the contract to remove his veto from transfers. They wanted to reduce that. They wanted to include some break clauses if they were going to extend it a couple of years to make it cheaper to let him go. They wanted to do all of those things. Ten Hag did not want to give up clauses that were in his contract. I know that factually. Ten Hag did not want to relieve command of a couple of clauses. But they backed themselves into a corner at that point in time. And that was one of the reasons there was quite a bit of slowness. We've covered it on Manuel Ugarte, who, as you can see, Ten Hag never wanted. Now, a veto is useful and it's not, because if you sit there starting to veto things, they can just say, fine, we're just going to not sign you any players at all. And you still have a threat and things like that because you can still always get sacked, which he has. But it was a problem. It was a problem. It was causing difficulties. Now, last year, I said that one of the backup plans that they had in mind, and I've maintained this all year, and I've told you before, I do not care who tells you different. I've maintained all along that one of their ideas in mind was to get a backup plan of getting new assistants, because they felt that the assistant coaches were also a huge problem. There was major conflict between a lot of the players and the assistants, far more than with Ten Hag. Specifically, a couple of people. I don't want to actually get into certain things that are a little more rumory. Not Benny McCarthy, who was more just not somebody that they wanted to bring back, but actually got along with people and was trying his best to mend a lot of fences. But Van der Gog and a number of players, and I'm not talking about Rashford, had huge issues in the last year, and that was a big reason why they wanted to change it. They were not really happy with that. But they had a backup plan of bringing a manager in, a coach in that could take over from Ten Hag in a pinch. This was a backup plan. They interviewed Gary O'Neill over the potential to do this beforehand. Bring in an assistant who could take over. And while they may not have picked Van Nistelrooy, like I said, there's like I've maintained many times, the coaches would stay. The coaches would stay if Ten Hag were to leave, at least in the short term, to take over. And it's sort of like you give someone an option, they may come up with the idea you want them to come up with. Someone that has so you say, look, we think you should get a new assistant in. We want someone who's more qualified, who has more experience. Maybe someone who could help you build a relationship with the fans and see who they come up with. And you have good relationships with that person and that player. So as I said, that's kind of been there all along, regardless of whether Ten Hag picked Van Nistelrooy or not. That was the backup plan. So, yeah, given all of that, that's where we ended up. And they went into the summer. They did everything. They didn't have that contract extended. And from that moment on, as I understood it, they were already looking into the long-term options. When they could not extend that contract, they were already knowing we're going to have to replace him next year. But their hope was that this season we could see some progress. We could see some improvement. We could start laying in some foundations. The biggest disappointment that they've had on Ten Hag through this whole year and through this entire season is that he does not coach any sort of style at all. That there was no following to the plan. They were actually quite encouraged by the first few games, but as soon as we encountered a setback, that Ten Hag chopped and changed it again and went in a different direction, raised major red flags for them, because their whole idea was to stick with a very specific way of playing and bring it. And the Fulham style of the first game of the season was closer to how they wanted to play. In preseason, I've said this before, and some people took issue with this because it was, aggregated or whatever, but I know this to be true. They were spending in private training sessions and things like that ages doing very specific and direct attacking drills involving overlapping fullbacks. Like, you can just rewind the video. Just rewind the video. Pause, click pause. Both of you. They were doing some very specific things, and then they just abandoned it instantly. They abandoned it instantly, and just abandoned it. So it was like these things just changed. These things just changed, and it's really funny here. Yeah. One second, apologies. So that was a big concern. And then, overlapping fullbacks. Like they had very specific, and it's not just that. The point was that was an example. That was just a suggestion, like just a piece of the puzzle of everything that's happened. And there was a lot of concerns. The continuation. One of the things that I'm told happened very recently is they had a discussion with Erik Ten Hag and told him they're not really accepting these excuses, that they were getting really tired of hearing them. And I'm told that this conversation occurred. Likely not the type of thing that's you're ever gonna hear much about, because I believe it was a fairly private conversation. But I'm told that there was a real unhappiness with the excuses, that they felt they've given Ten Hag the team this year. And last season there was a plausible deniability about how things went with the injuries. They did not accept them this year. Okay, they did not accept the excuses this year. They felt he's had a team, a full team, a solid team, and enough tools to do what he needed to do. And the continued excuses while making baffling decisions were things that they didn't accept. And they let him know they were unhappy with those excuses. They've had private conversations about it, about some of the reasons he's given, and they did not feel, and one of the things that led to his changes, they did not feel even privately that he took responsibility for the situation and for the way that things were going. Not even just publicly, but privately, that he would not. And that is not something that people in this business like and are happy with. So, I'm not going to go into like kicking everything when he's down. He wasn't their guy. And at the end of the day, that made it difficult. But I will say that the excuses and the lack of responsibility was a big factor in them pulling and making that decision. Ahmad Luxeethy, when he came on versus Fenerbahce, is also on the list of on it. I mean, for sure he is, because there's a lot of players, there's a lot of articles talking about like preferential treatment and things like that. I've been speaking for a while about how there was a feeling like players didn't understand what they had to do. And that's one of the problems. A lot of players did not understand what they had to do to be successful under Ten Hag, what they had to do to be picked under Ten Hag. They would see players doing this and not doing that and getting picked. They don't know what they needed to do to be successful. So you had a lot of players. I'm not going to pin it on Ahmad or something, because then someone's going to tweet it out. Muppeteer said Ahmad hated Erik Ten Hag and blah, blah, blah. And then he gets into all this player FC bullshit. But there was a broad lack of understanding about what it means to be successful and to be a player that you will get picked under Ten Hag. Okay, what do I have to do to get a starting spot? What do I have to do to not be a starting spot? To get benched. That was not understood by a lot of people to do that. And that's part of good leadership. Tubby, what does that mean for goat knee? I think your guy is finished, man. If that's the case, it's unforgivable. It's a coach's job to make it clear as what's needed of them. Yes, and that's what it means to be a good leader. You need to make the demands of everybody clear and fair. Everybody's going to always have different ways of treating people. Let's not get that twisted a little bit, right? You have to have different ways of treating people. Sir Alex Ferguson, master in man management, treated people differently, for sure. But each individual needs to understand what they have to do in order to make it. And there has to be a way for them to win. If there isn't, then they shouldn't be there at the club. If there isn't, then you're screwed essentially in that case. Now, I will tell you, guys like Lissandro is not gonna leave because Ten Hag's gone. Lissandro is not. Lissandro is not the type of player that will leave because of that. I can tell you that for sure. There's not a lot of players who are going to sit there and say, "Oh, Ten Hag's gone. Now I'm going to down tools of this club or be upset." And Lissandro is definitely not one of them. He's somebody that I know is very excited about Ineos coming in and the changes that they were making at this club and the improvements that they were making, because there was a number of players who've shown up to United and been disappointed. and what things have looked like around the club. And Lisandro is somebody who is hoping for improvements with Ineos coming in, and is, as I understand it, happy to see them, along with a lot of other players. So, yeah, you know, it is what it is. Now we have to ask, right, which is the question everybody wants to know, and it's taken me 26 minutes to get here. I apologize, but I had to ramble through the morning and talk about everything and go through all of that. I think everyone has got basically 3/4 of the season to prove they can be part of the future. If anyone wants to go on the basis of decision, they should be pushed out urgently. Yes. Yes. I think there's a lot of people who dislike Player FC Rashford. Oh, that's such bullshit. Give over. It's such bullshit. Talking like players getting someone sacked. Ten Hag wouldn't have survived his first season without Marcus Rashford. He would have been sacked in 6 months without Marcus Rashford, and that's a fact. So, yeah, here's the thing. These guys didn't sign for Ten Hag. You know, Lenny Yoro didn't sign for Ten Hag. You didn't get Real Ferdinand on the phone to him, Wilcox, Barada, you know, talking to people to sign him for Ten Hag. That's not how it worked this summer. You know, that's why we didn't sign Sofian Amrabat. You know, that's why we didn't sign certain other players. Nagelsmann and Wirtz 2025 bring. Anyway, let's get to the targets. Let's get to the targets. It's funny because Ruben Amorim has already been asked. I'll talk about Amorim in a second. Ruben Amorim has already been asked about it because he had a press conference this morning. And obviously, you know, he no commented, but he said, you know, I've already expecting this question. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about the future because otherwise I'll always have to comment. I'm very proud to be a sporting coach. To be sporting coach, that's all. Which obviously tells you absolutely nothing from him, which is totally fine. James, let's hit Dirk. Oh my God. So yeah, let's go through it. Let's go through it. Let's go through it and let's talk about what I've heard so far. This is going to be very evolving. Okay. This is going to be very evolving because there's a few different considerations here, right? There's, I think there's three major questions that have to be answered. Three major questions, which is number one, of course, do we like them? That's going to be the big list. Managers that we would consider, right? Then you have to narrow that down. Managers who would consider us, right? Managers who aren't going to turn us down, right? And then you have to narrow that down further into managers who are available in any sense now. Yeah, so in that big list, you're going to have guys like we said, Thomas Tuchel, who we really liked, but not available. In that big, or who didn't want us. In that big list, I believe you'll have Julian Nagelsmann, a manager who I think United would really, I know that Ineos and United would really like, but he turned us down previously, was not interested in the position, and I would be surprised if that changed now. As I don't think there's been any indication that Julian Nagelsmann does not want to continue with Germany. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he turned us down before. I've not seen any indication that he doesn't want to continue with Germany to the World Cup. If that changed, if they can get on the phone with him and convince him, so be it. But I'd be really surprised if that happens, okay? Because he did not want the job before. Then you have, he signed an extension with Germany. He committed to them. He turned us down. He wanted this job. He wanted that position, right? So, yeah, I would be extremely surprised, if he didn't. Sorry, phone is ringing. I just want to make sure it's not something urgent for me. No, it's all good. So I'd be very surprised there. No, he can't. There's no way to be Germany and United coach, right? Let me look at all my shit here because I have these I've been building notes on all of this for ages. So I want to make sure I get this all right in what I answer and what I say to you all. Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso is a questionable one in terms of where he falls on this list, okay? Because he's somebody that they would really like, that they would love even to come into Manchester United. However, his long-term plan has been to join Real Madrid when Carlo Ancelotti leaves. Now, at the same time, Manchester City are also very interested in Xabi Alonso, and they would be in competition for him as well. That is a really, really tough one. That is a really tough one to try to get, right? And obviously his connection to Liverpool is a difficult thing. You know, I think it's at the point where a lot of fans would accept him for sure, but that's a difficult one. That's a difficult one to move past, right? So there's that one. But I think, so you're looking at names that they would love, but that are probably not available, that they probably cannot obtain as you move forward through there. Xabi. Alonso. Zinedine Zidane, you know, somebody that some people have really liked within United for a long time, but there's not really anything to indicate that he's in frame for the job. I would still understand that I think I've said this before, but you know, I think he's just gonna wait until the French job is available. That's what it feels like anyway, if he's gonna get back into management. However long that may be. Let me think here. Yeah, I mean, if Ancelotti decided to leave, then maybe. So let's move to the more realistic targets, and then there's two other factors in this. Okay, the more likely thing is I think right now that Ruben Nistelrooy stays as the interim for a little while we still continue to work through this option. One of the questions that I've asked to a couple of sources of mine and that they're looking into now, and I don't have an answer back, is whether or not the sacking has happened today because they got an answer back from somebody. I don't know the answer to that question yet, because as I heard it, this was kind of inevitable and it was coming soon, but it happened actually a little quicker than I expected. I thought it was going to be next week. Happened a little quicker than expected, and so I just don't know if there's anything to do with them potentially hearing an answer back from somebody. I actually don't know. But I think that given everything that's happened, given everything that has occurred, they are a little bit more inclined now to go for a permanent manager mid-season than they were before. Okay? I think they're a little bit more inclined to go for a permanent manager than they were before mid-season and spend the money. Because can I stay on the stream all day? I mean, if you know, there's like 1,600 people right now. And that would be fun. I'll stay on as long as I can keep yapping and until I actually have to do something. And see if I get any answers back or any major news comes out. But I don't know about all day. I don't think I can yap all day. I'm tired as it is. I've been up super early and I do have some work to get done. But anyway, yeah, drop a like on the stream. Yeah, you can watch you work all day. maybe. But no, I mean, look, they're more willing to. They are more willing to. They're more willing to pay for a manager, not pay, like it wasn't the money was the issue, but I think they're more willing to look at, see if they can get somebody now because it's sooner, to get somebody now because they've made this decision than they were maybe earlier when, like, if it was going to get into January or February. DB Cooper, all day dollars. Thank you for the donation, buddy. Appreciate that. Because it's so soon, you know, if they had to make a change in January or February, then it would be rough. But right now, you could still turn the season around if you go and buy someone good. If you go buy someone real good that you really want for the long term, and you give them a really good chance, you're still in all your competitions. Yeah, so I think that they will do that if they can get the right person. I think they will. I think they'll do that if they get the right person. So who's realistic, right? Okay, so I want to talk about two names that have been like popping up a little more recently, but less popular, which is one, Edin Terzic. He's someone they're interested in, but I don't think it was someone that they're convinced about as a long-term manager, more of a potentially a short-term option. I don't think he'll get the job. I don't think that this is going to be someone both ways that they want to get done. I don't believe so. Like I said, this happened sooner than expected, so I'm still waiting on high answers. But so I'm just giving it from the basis of the knowledge that I have, which is that Edin Terzic, I do not believe, would be getting the job. He was definitely not at the top of the list. They have to fail with quite a number of managers to end up with Terzic. And I still think that would be temporary. Okay? I still think that would be temporary. Xavi Hernandez, right? That's his name. My accent, my American accent doesn't have us mixed up when I say Xabi. Because when I type Xabi, it always autocorrects to one or the other as well. So we'll say Xavi Hernandez. You know, he didn't, as I mentioned earlier, they approached him during summer. He didn't want the job at that time. And Xavi, should I say Xavi? Isn't it Xabi? I don't know. He didn't want the job at that time. I'm not sure he was at the top of the list, but they were interested in him. He turned it down at that time. Well, not he directly, but, you know, they just said, look, you've seen the things from Spain about this, that he wanted a year off before doing another project. That is correct. They had approached him on this. But there's been reports recently that they had some talks with him, you know, and there's been reports that they have some talks with him. So I can't rule this one out. I don't know if it's going to be short or long term, but I cannot rule this one out right now. So I'm going to leave that there just for the moment, okay? I think as a short-term option, Xavi would be very good. I think as a long-term option, I don't think he'd be very good. That's just my opinion, though. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm going to mute for just a second. Sorry, just checking something. It's okay. No, it's Solskjaer. No. It's fine. I keep teasing. I'm just keep telling you it's gonna be Solskjaer until anyway. Let's see. So that was Xavi. So there's three names that I've maintained for quite a while that I have a stronger feeling would be the potential managers for United, and that was due to a combination of all these factors: Thomas Frank, Ruben Amorim, and Kieran McKenna. Iraola is someone that has been being watched and looked at. Is an interesting option, but I've not heard much yet about anything further. Sebastian Hoeneß, as I mentioned, someone that they've been looking at, that they have been interested in him, but they're not as of now, I'm not seeing anything yet to suggest that they could get him at this time. Inzaghi, by the way, on that story, I think I mentioned this before. I think they're watching and interested in him too, but he's not going to leave Inter right now, right? I don't think there's any suggestion that he'd be wanting to leave Inter at the moment, so I don't think that he will. So the three names that I have as the more likely due to prior interest, they did not reject United, and Inzaghi doesn't speak English, does he? And would be obtainable are Thomas Frank, Kieran McKenna, and Ruben Amorim, right? Those are three names. I right today, I would be surprised if it's not one of those three. Today, I would be surprised if it's not one of those three. Thomas Frank would cost a fair bit of money right now, as would Ruben Amorim. I think McKenna would actually be the most expensive at the moment. And, with McKenna, huge risk right now in terms of public perception and all of that too. I said this before, which is that was staying at Ipswich. This was kind of always what was going to happen. They were going to have a really hard time this year, and then his stock was going to be really low, and people were going to be very worried about him because that is a bad team, essentially. You know what I mean? Like, that is a bad team. That is not a Premier League team at all. And, that is not a Premier League team at all. And so this was kind of always going to happen. So, it is what it is. Big risk there. Thomas Frank is someone that is hugely admired among a lot of people in football right now. He is somebody where very forward-thinking manager, very adaptable, somebody who is a lot of people are just waiting for him to take that big step up and see how he does as a big club, because he has the personality for it. Very, very strong personality. He is viewed as an excellent leader in the dressing room, on the pitch with his players. Someone very forward thinking with data and analysis, and all of that. And it would be probably similar, very similar to the slot type of appointment if you were to bring in Thomas Frank. Very similar to the slot appointment for Liverpool in terms of how you appoint him to bring in Thomas Frank. I think it'd be a real similar type of appointment to that. Someone the analytics love, someone whose communication is viewed as one of his biggest assets. And that is something that will be extremely valued. That'd be one thing that I would really point to quite strongly on whoever comes in next, that their communication abilities are going to be valued almost over anything else, because that was essentially, in their view, the biggest failing of Ten Hag, but also at the same time was also, the way that they just their approach to things, their view things. Communication is huge. That's their biggest factors, is communication. That's what they see. So I expect it'll be somebody rated really highly on that communication, just as a good communicator. And I know that Thomas Frank is rated very, very highly, there as well. Which is why they've really liked people like, there's admiration for like Postecoglou, because he's somebody that is viewed as a very strong communicator. Unai Emery would be hugely admired, but he's not leaving. He's in the perfect job for him. In the absolute perfect job for him. Like I said, it would be like the slot appointment. Very strongly, it would be similar to that. I mean, what has... Yeah. So it would be similar, very, very similar in that. McKenna obviously is lacking in the experience of managing at the high level, but has been experienced with United. But it's a difficult situation. It's a difficult situation for him right now at Ipswich, and he'd signed that new contract to be quite expensive. So a big risk to go for Kieran McKenna. Ruben Amorim, I think, is the best manager on the market by some margin. I think Ruben Amorim is the best manager on the market by some margin. 19 years Sporting went without winning a title. I think people obviously think of Sporting if they're not as familiar with Portuguese football and think that Sporting is like historically like this club that has been winning a lot recently and is the top of a non-competitive league, but they could not be more wrong. He's on the market because he has a release clause, and he will take a step at some point. And he was available this summer. Maybe he will go to City, but they've got other names in mind too. I think he's the best manager on the market because, again, he's someone who is willing to leave his club at the right time. It may not be during the year, and maybe at the end of the year. But Ruben Amorim, 19 years Sporting went without a title. They've won 2 under him. And now, if you look at what he's doing this season, it is genuinely one of the most impressive accomplishments so far. One of the best ever starts for a club in any top league. 17 goals scored away, 1 conceded. One of the problems that he's had are, in the past, were being a bit prone to certain aspects of things like transitions against him defensively, which made his record in Europe not so great. He's fixed that this season. They've beaten Lille already, who beat, don't forget, Real Madrid and Atletico in the Champions League. And I think they have 2 wins and a draw, or a win and 2 draws. 7 points, I believe, in the Champions League in 3 games, are likely to get into the next round. They've done quite well. And he's someone who's very, very strong personally, a very excellent communicator, viewed as someone who, as a leader, his personality, his charisma, his greatest attributes. So again, somebody I think that would fit a lot of the boxes for them. He's accomplished. He's won things. He's dealt with Sporting, a club where you're rebuilding all the time over there. I reckon it's between Frank and Amorim. Interesting thing about Amorim is, would he like his 3-4-2-1? Frank would be decent, but would love Amorim. Yeah, I think that's potential. So yeah, look, this Xabi thing is a bit of a wild card. If they've actually had discussions recently, there's still some reports out of Spain today, right, that he's intending to continue his year off. I think it would be hard to get, like, Amorim's available, but there's obviously also the question of who do you have to have somebody mid-season or not? Do you wait? I think Frank, that if they're willing to pay the money, I think Frank they could get right now. I think Amorim, it's less likely they could get him right now, that he would leave mid-season. I don't know that to be sure, but I think it's much less likely he would be willing to leave mid-season. So it kind of depends how they want to approach this. Yeah, Amorim is playing. Yeah, Sporting will play City next week in the Champions League as well. Very interesting. So it's going to be interesting how they approach this, and obviously the answers that we don't have are: did they make the decision now so quickly because they've gone through the options? Not quickly, but did they do it now because they've gotten an answer back on someone that they would really like? And if so, are they ready, or are they going to wait until the right time to announce it, to put it forward, all of that? We don't know. We don't know if that's the case. I assume we'll get some answers on that soon. We don't know if it'll be Van Nistelrooy, and yet we're not sure yet if it'll be Van Nistelrooy, and then they'll just go through assessing and line it up for summer. They haven't made it clear yet. Yeah, I absolutely will do a video this week on different managers and their systems and the views on each of them, and kind of condense this information into a more useful format. Amorim would leave midseason? I don't know. I actually don't know that. I feel like he would, but I also don't think he. I also feel like he wouldn't. But yeah, we really don't know yet if they're going to do the line someone up to a point right at the end of the season versus versus getting somebody right now. But the early-ish indications are that they're very much not opposed to doing something now and spending some money. If they can get him. So, yeah, we are going to have to wait on that. But I do think that from the information I've had for the long run, my expectation was by the end of the season, it would be that Frank or Amorim would be the favorites. If they cannot, and obviously if they could go and get a big candidate like Xabi Alonso, as we know, etc. But I was expecting Frank or Amorim to come at the end of the season as more likely than anybody else. Now that they've done this, now we'll see if they move for one of those mid-season or if something else comes to the forefront. Angie, I've been told it's interim to end the season, Xabi in summer. That's the dream, right? I mean, to be fair, to me, that's the dream. That's the dream. You let it. I would really be okay with that. Southgate's already ruled himself out of the job. Quite a number of people, including David Ornstein, have ruled out Southgate. I mean, David Ornstein said he's not high on the list at all. That's all you need. You don't even have to ask me. David Ornstein said he's not high up on the list, and he ruled himself out. You reckon we get? I do think that they need to address this quickly, though, right? I do think they need to address this quickly. I do. Think they'll wait until after Chelsea for the new guy to start the fixtures. I don't think they could get somebody in this week regardless, right? I think it's probably going to take a little bit longer anyway. Do I think the Amrabat comments and all that had effect? Look, I think those are negative things because, there was a lot of dispute between him and Mr. Wilcox in general. And that was a big problem. Odds of Nagelsmann leaving Germany. Like, to me, it's like, that's like zero, To me, that's like zero. But I really think that, like I said, Frank and Amorim are the two managers that I believe are the strongest candidates. I see Florian Plettenberg is kind of... It's hard to tell with Plettenberg. He had some really good stories this year. But I'm led to believe that is pretty true. So he's not planning a winter move. Yeah. Release clause next summer. But he would still be... I would suspect it would be next summer. Fabrizio... is that Fabrizio or Fabrice Hawkins? Or who is that? But... No, look, Amorim is that's what I'm saying. He's on the market. The unknown is he could be convinced to join now where it's early enough. Amorim and Frank have been the two names that I've been hearing more than anybody else for quite a while. Do you see a scenario where we decide on Amorim and agree a deal now from? Absolutely. If we wanted Amorim next year, like if we're going to appoint someone in summer, I do not believe they will wait till summer to get it done. Yeah, we do have to look. Ornstein is going to get the exclusive, right? If you haven't seen the clues, Ornstein's going to get the exclusive. He's got he's going to get the message from Barada. All right, go for it. You know, it's this, right? He's gonna get it. That's just he's got that line to Barada quite clearly. He does, and that's cool. I'm happy with that because it removes all shadow of a doubt when, not that there's ever really been with Ornstein, but you know, it's funny. But that doesn't mean we can't see. It doesn't mean we can't see. You know, we're not getting good info ahead of times, right? Doesn't mean we're not getting good like hints or info ahead of times, but we're gonna get that final kind of trigger is always gonna come from Ornstein under this leadership right now, and that's all good. You know, it's all good to me. Look, Ornstein has established himself as a, you know, to be fair though, I want to give you one little thing on this, okay? Sometimes that can be used against him a little bit, right? Like when you know that Ugarte situation in summer where he was saying we were walking away. Well, Fabrizio, to credit to Fabrizio on this one, and myself too, I'm going to give myself a little credit here, that Fabrizio maintained we weren't walking away, and I maintained that we were still very much interested in him, but we just wanted the price to come down. And that there were some discussion, and there was issues within the club that they didn't want to really put out there, the disagreements about him. And that was correct in the end. And it was a little bit of the game being played to put it out there that United were walking away from Ugarte. So there's a little bit of a gamesmanship that goes into it when you get sources, like when you get to be that briefed on things. I'm not a critique, but anyway, not a critique, but I thought that was funny. Ornstein's about to drop a super chat on you. Just watch. No, it's okay. No. It's all good. I was just saying. I think that was an interesting situation how that happened. Would like to think Wilcox and Barada. Look, Wilcox and Barada absolutely have their ideas in mind, but Dan Ashworth has a big say in this too. You know, he has a big say in this too. Not just a big say, probably the biggest say, quite frankly. Ugarte is absolutely not a Jorge Mendes forced signing to get us Euro. It's just completely false. It's a very funny suggestion that football works that way, but it's completely false. It's never been true, never been correct. He'll turn up with copies of Southgate's CV. James, what system does Amorim play? He plays a 3 at the back. He plays a 3 at the back. It's very like I've said before, it's fairly similar to Liverpool's in a sense. It's direct, pressing high, fullback's important to the attack. It's not a possession for possession's sake system. He's made some strong adjustments this year that definitely have shored it up a little bit. It's very attacking. And yeah, they've changed it a bit. And in terms of how you would use him, how he would line up, I actually think he fits our team really well, to be honest. I think he fits our team really well, to be quite honest. He's the midfield setup would be Ugarte and Xabi Menu. He's worked with Manuel Ugarte before. Obviously, he worked with Palhinha, Ugarte, now Yeoman, who we really liked as well. But Xabi Menu and Manuel Ugarte would pretty easily be his two, you know, in that midfield. Morgan, do you think they would go for the Aston Villa manager? You mean Unai Emery? Unai Emery is people would love, but he's not gonna leave. He's not gonna leave. Yeah, Poch has been Poch has is now managing matches for the U.S. men's national team. So, you know, he plans to see it through to the World Cup as well. I think that is one we can forget about. He's still within that 6-month time frame too, where he can't take another job. Just by the way, in England, as far as I understand it, or at the top 6 club or something like that. Hey, it shows violence. I saw that. Yeah, Gyökeres and Højlund are really similar. I don't think Bruno fits quite a number of managers, to be quite honest, because, you know, like, let's take Amorim, for example. They don't do high-risk creativity from the middle. That's one of the things that they've done to not be so defensively suspect to transitions. Losing the ball in the wider areas rather than in the central areas. Hey, man, could you describe the Ineos game model and therefore which managers are best fits? Well, look, I don't think it's necessarily like a 100%. It has to be, you know, something. It has to be like an exact thing where it's that specific. But a couple of the factors that are important to it are, number one, obviously they want to dominate games. They do not want to play pragmatic counter-attacking football. That is one of the things that they've been really unhappy with as well with the Ten Hag thing, is that you could not do this like survival football, okay? Like this survival football. They don't want to see that type of football, like deep, just wait to hit on the counter type of thing. They want to have an entertaining but attacking and controlling style of football. I've made a comparison before, but it is as close to Slot's Liverpool as anything else, if you want a description. Morgan, also, what does the future hold for Mount? Good question, but I think Mount could fit a lot of things as well, if he could ever get healthy. You know, he's got to get healthy. He's got to get healthy. What did Luckhurst say about McKenna? What, that McKenna was waiting for the job? That aspect? Yeah, well, Phil and I are going to do our podcast. We're going to record it in just over an hour. Luckhurst blocked me ages ago, so you're going to have to tell me what he said. I got blocked a long time ago. I got blocked a long time ago. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Yeah, okay, fair enough. I don't know, but that's the case, you know. Look, I do think there were some leaks from Chelsea during summer for sure, obviously. But it wasn't just the McKenna thing. We were interviewing the same candidates they were interviewing. Pochettino, like, who was being sacked, you know, Pochettino, all sorts of people. So, you know, there was a lot of things to it like that. I don't think it was a senior Chelsea source leaking it. I mean, I was leaking it for like weeks beforehand. So, you know, yeah, look, there's going to be good sources on all of this. But some of it we're just going to have to wait. You know what I mean? I know that's a little annoying, but there's a few answers that we don't have yet. And, you know, the answers are, of course, again, do we, today's podcast will be cinema. Yeah, it'll be great. And Phil, you know, Phil's on board. Phil is definitely not anti-Ten Hag sacking. I think that, am I a senior Chelsea source now too? Maybe. Maybe. It'll be good. It's not just an audio podcast. If you watch it on my channel, it's got video too. It should be decent. Live stream the podcast, man. My hood would be dead, Jamal. I'll ask him. I'll ask him if he wants to do it live. I don't think he's going to want it today for other reasons, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But look, we'll be live plenty this week. We'll be making videos. We'll be doing shit all week, everything. So there'll be plenty. I'll do something with. Yeah. Anyway, the bet on Frank is still ongoing. So yeah, look, the questions we have to answer are, number one. I'll stay on until I honestly, I will stay on until I go record the podcast. Maybe. I would strongly consider it. I mean, it's already been an hour. We will keep going here until, as long as we can. Serious question: will we see Tyrell Malacia play anytime soon? I don't think so. We keep hearing that, but I don't think so. But yeah, look, the questions that we have are, again, can we get somebody in this year who is one of the top targets, or will we simply line it up for the end of the season? And we don't know the answer to that. And we have really strong candidates like Frank and Amorim that I think are probably their two strongest candidates, but there are potentially more. There are definitely potentially more. You think it would come so soon after the West Ham? No, I honestly didn't. And that's why I'm really curious whether they got an answer back from somebody or if they just got fed up from some of the conversations that they've had. Because like I said, they had some chats. They were really unhappy with some of the excuses being given. And I don't know if that prompted them to pull the plug, that they just got so frustrated, or if they got an answer back from somebody else. I don't know which one is the case, frankly. I actually don't know yet, and hopefully I'll find out, because the messages I'm getting were saying it's after Chelsea, it's over. And so I was expecting it would be like they were going to give him more time, and then things had already gone so poorly that they were like, all right, we're going to get this is going to be done, but it looks like it's probably going to be after Chelsea. So I was expecting it to be after Chelsea, but as of yesterday, I was expecting it to be after Chelsea, but it happened sooner. It happened a lot sooner. So I want to know why. We don't know yet why. But it was either just pure frustration, or or maybe they got an answer back from somebody else. I don't think it's about like a simple questions of like a manager who will score. Like, look, they're not going to get a pragmatic defensive manager, okay? They're not going to get a pragmatic defensive manager. They obviously, they still want someone. A couple of the factors are obviously like big factors in them are communication, development of players, and what was the other word I was going to use? And they do want somebody that fits with the squad that they're building, right? That fits with the squad that they're building. That is important. And I think that there's data building into that as to it. That's one of my doubts about Xavi specifically, right? And where I'm like, I don't see that our squad is... We don't have a ton of data on Xavi managing, obviously, because it was mostly in Saudi, right? Outside of Barcelona. He ticks a few boxes, but it's not like we have a team similar to Barcelona where he did well, like at all. Not even like a little bit, right? In terms of the player profiles. That's why I've got some major doubts on that. It's not even close to a similar team, but communication and leadership, I think, are the biggest issues. And I think Qatar, is that where he was? Okay. It was in Qatar, yes, that's right. I think that both Amorim and Thomas Frank fit better. I think Amorim ticks a lot of the boxes, and he's dealing with a lot of turnover at Sporting, dealt with the pressure really well, and all of that, you know. So yeah, I'll poll it. You guys asked to poll it. You know, who do you want? Who do you want? I could give you. I'm gonna put in the more realistic options for now, okay? Because I think that, and I'll see who wins this one, and then I'll put them up against the unrealistic options, just out of curiosity. I'm gonna give you these four first, okay? I think that Frank is very underrated in the fact that he would be similar to a slot type appointment. No, look, I don't think Amorim will come mid-season as well. That's the issue, right? But it could be a long-term thing there, very much like lining it up for next year. That is the issue, right? That I fully agree with that. I don't think he would leave mid-season either. I've not really heard anything about that. He isn't planning to leave this season. Yeah. But he can leave in the summer for a release clause. So we don't know if they're going to decide to do it now, or just line it up now. Like to get somebody now or to line it up now. If they want to get it now, I think Frank is probably the only option. No, I did not say they weren't looking at Amorim. I said he might not be top of the list for, and a consideration for that was who is obtainable now. There's two different plans in place, right? Which is who can you obtain now and who's available in the long term. Amorim is on the list. I don't necessarily know that he's the top of it, but I did expect by the end of the season he would be, and he's having such a good year, it's definitely improving his chances. But I don't think Amorim is, you know, I think Amorim is one that you say, good, yeah, we could get him next year, and if he keeps going well. I think Frank is the most obtainable right now of all the managers on United's short list. Expensive still. It would still cost a lot of money. Why would you want Ole back? I understand why people would. I think it's completely wrong, but I understand why people would. If you were Amorim, would you be concerned about the pressure to succeed Pep if you followed Viana? It'd be a good job for him too. I don't think City's squad fits. Like, obviously City have an amazing squad, so it's hard to say. But if they could get everybody now and they would go for Amorim, then we shouldn't get someone else permanent. And that's a good point, you know. But it depends. Do they see him as better than the other guys? I'm not sure about that. Like, if they think Frank is as good or better, then fair enough. You know, then fair enough. All right, so on this vote, Amorim followed by Frank. Let me ask a question. Would you be happy with Thomas Frank? Let's leave it as a simple yes or no. I'm just gathering people's thoughts on this. Delayed gratification. No point getting... Look, I agree with you. I think that pick your top target. If he's not available now, but you can get him in summer, then line him up for summer today. Get it done, and then ride out the rest of the season with an interim. And you can talk to them. You can have their input. They can communicate with you, and you get who you want. I think that's the best plan. Now, if the person you want right now for sure is available, then great. But I think it's true that you should remove the availability from the factor in your initial thought process. Right. Well, you can get Amorim on a gentleman's agreement now. You can even make a deal now and say to Sporting, look, we'll pay the release clause in summer. We'll pay the release clause in summer. So you can even make an agreement to do so if they wanted to get him. When Ole was under pressure, fans wanted Rangnick and Ten Hag. What stops us from being in the same position 3 seasons from now with the next manager? Really good question, Gabs, and I understand why that's fair. What we want is just opinions, right? The issue is that it's not just the issue with the Glazers is not just like who they're not appointing or who their decisions on managers, but who they picked. I don't think Erik Ten Hag was the right hire. I've never have. Because the reasons that he were hired, for me, were wrong. The reasons that he was hired for me were wrong. It was mostly due to the fact that he was popular among fans. And that's how you avoid these issues, is stop listening to fans. Because think about it. Listening to fans meant exactly, I'm not saying this is why, but if we listen to fans, you end up not sacking Ten Hag because he won an FA Cup only to have to sack him 3 months later. You just don't listen to fans, like at all. You don't listen to fans in the slightest. And so these polls are just for us. This isn't about how you pick a manager. This is for us. These are all opinions. That's the whole point. I'm just curious what people think, because I want to know. It has nothing to do with what Ineos should do. If this poll was 90%, people wouldn't be happy with Thomas Frank. I don't think that matters. If they wanted him, they should do it. Assuming Amorim available in summer and wants to come, he'd be the first choice. I'm going to go out for him, pay the clause. They just need to pick the right manager on the right. They want to pick the right manager for the right reasons. That's what matters to me. All right. There. All right. So in this one, it's a mixed bag. I'm not unexpectedly on Thomas Frank, 55% or so on the votes there. Pochettino's not a bad manager. Pochettino. Here's the thing, right? Pochettino was the correct hire. Because whether he would have succeeded or not is not what I'm saying. Pochettino was the correct hire at the time. He was the coach that the people involved, who were actual football people, analyzing the squad, analyzing the team, analyzing the data, said, that's the guy that fits our team, where we don't have to start over, that would continue and take Ole's project a step up. Whether or not it worked or would have worked is a different question. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but he was the right choice for this team. He was the right choice for this team based on data, not based on sentiment. And we don't know how it would have turned out because we didn't hire him. So it is what it is. He definitely set up and turned around Chelsea's fortunes, helping them continue this year. Maybe he would have been sacked too, okay? But I think it would have been a lot less chaotic. Look, I think any manager was going to fail under the Glazers regardless, but technically he was the right choice. Because the right choice is the one based on the data from the football people, not from owners, conducting Gary Neville fan polls. That's why he was the right choice. It's that simple. That's the answer, right? That is correct. You don't run it. You have to run it based on some standard, and that was the standard it should have been. That was the standard it should have been. At the minimum, you listen to the people you've appointed to make football decisions. We didn't do that. We ignored their information. That's what makes it wrong. There's no guarantees in outcomes, so correct and right when it comes to football decisions are just about listening to the people you're supposed to listen to. They're not always going to be right either. He absolutely was hired because of fans. It was a huge factor. His popularity was a huge factor in why he was hired. 100%. Absolutely correct. You can ignore it if you want, but it was. It was a big part of why he was hired. and then they got in over their head. And he ended up playing for even more control. Yeah, Pletico saying he won't leave until summer, but he's on the list. Yeah, and that's fair. So the decision, what we don't know is, are we going to agree a deal ahead of summer or try to get somebody now? And that depends on that list. But for me, the main names are going to end up being Frank and Amorim, or have been. If guys who are above them on the list, Xabi Alonso, Nagelsmann, etc., are still not interested, then that would be the case. Amorim, I don't think is the fans' popular choice. I think a lot of people have big concerns. I mean, maybe in here I've talked up Amorim a lot. But I think on average, I don't think Amorim is like the popular choice at all. I think that, but here's the thing. It's like, it's not that fans can't be wrong, can't be right too. Like, you know, fans can like a manager and maybe that manager's the right guy. Maybe he's not. Point is, that's not the deciding factor. Fans might love right now if you went out and got Carlo Ancelotti. I think Carlo Ancelotti would be a great manager. You know, Thomas Tuchel was the fans' popular choice recently, but he didn't want the job, and I kept saying that. No, fans can be right. They can. You know, like, I think if you went out and said, hey, we're hiring Nagelsmann right now, would fans like it? Yes, absolutely they would. And would he be a good manager? Yeah, I think it would be great. But it's not because fans like it that it would be the right choice. You know what I mean? It's not because fans like it that it's the right choice. It's because it's the right choice that it's the right choice. It can just happen that, you know, the broken clock that is the fan base can be right. In general, I think fans are on average are pretty much always wrong. Right. If they're right, they're lucky. Exactly. In general, if fans are right, then they're lucky. For the most part, as a masses, it's not like there aren't individuals and people who are intelligent and analyze things well, but on average, the fan bases, and this is not just United's fan bases as a whole, don't get things right. You know, Liverpool in summer said they were going to make the unpopular decision. They came out with it. There was a whole thing about how they were like, we're not necessarily going to make the decision that's popular, because Amorim was super popular for Liverpool at that time. Xabi Alonso was like this overwhelming popular choice for Liverpool. Arne Slot was well down that list in terms of fans' popularity. And they evaluated it and said, that's the best guy for us. Yeah, Ornstein article about unpopular choices. Yeah, there was a whole thing about it. And they went with Arne Slot on that basis. They chose the data. And they won. And they've got a damn good manager who I'm quite jealous of, you know? Yeah, I mean, yeah, look, he's got a great squad. There's no doubt about it. But you still don't win, you know, 11 out of 12, right, of your first 12 games at any team without being a very good manager, you know? You don't. He's a very, very good manager. It's not new manager bounce because they didn't have the Klopp fall off. It's just they got but here's the point, right? It's totally correct. They picked they have a very good squad. They've built a very cohesive squad, and they picked the manager based on data that was going to fit that squad better than anybody else. That's why it's been allowed to continue. So it's not an accident. You can inherit a good squad and screw it up. You know what I mean? You can inherit a good team and screw it up if it's not the right guy. So that's a part of it. They're not lucky. They've been good, and they've won in the Champions League as well. You know, again, walking into a good setup makes sense. In my opinion, who'd be the best choice for the job? If you had anybody in the world, I would pick Xabi Alonso because I think he's the next best manager in the world. After that, I think from a football standpoint, Julian Nagelsmann is probably the best coach that we could get there. And then I would say of the more realistic options, next best coach, right? Like next best coach, not better than Pep, but I'm saying he's like the next up and coming best coach that's going to be, up there. Of the more realistic options, look, there's risks with Ruben Amorim, but I think that he's probably the best manager on the market right now. In terms of like being more available to make a move. Now or end of summer, obviously summer being more likely. I think Amorim's I'm not saying there aren't concerns with him, but I think he's the best coach. And I think he's adjustable. And I think if he had a settled team where he could get the top players in with a lot of money, he would solve some of the remaining issues to him. I think personality-wise, he ticks a lot of the important boxes, which matters to me a lot from an individual. Lewis, I don't disagree with you on that. Like, you don't like, that's why they really should never hire Southgate. Like, if the data says Southgate, don't hire Southgate, because there's so much bad blood there that you just I think it's between fans, between players, all of that. Yeah. Xavi, I don't think is the right fit. He could be a decent manager, but he's not the right fit. Iraola is a really, really interesting one. Thank you for reminding me of that. He's not somebody that I think is like at the top of the list right now, but honestly, he might be the best, like outside the big six and Unai Emery. I think he might be the best manager available. I don't know if he's available, but he might be the best manager. Iraola is doing an incredible job there. And maybe he needs more time to be evaluated and all of that, but he's doing a very good job. Yeah, Thiago Motta is good, but of course he took the job, right? So that is what it is. Really insulting people and saying no offense, yeah. Yeah, very, very interesting. Iraola is a very, very interesting manager. A very, very interesting one that I keep my eye on quite often because they play well. I really don't like the idea of Marco Silva. I gotta say that. I know there was some like tenuous kind of links to him. Maybe it was from what do you call it? What's the word? From the bald guy. But I don't think it was. I don't think there was too much in it. Duncan Castles, that was the guy. So, yeah, we're gonna find out pretty soon whether or not they have this guy, whether they've got their answer, and then, like, again, going through the degree of questions, it's number one, do they have an answer from somebody on who would take a job now? Yes or no? And then, is that someone who would take over now or someone who would take over later? We don't know those answers yet. And so we're gonna have to see. But I do think we'll find out pretty quickly. Yeah, Newcastle could be in the market for a manager soon too, Yeah. Newcastle could definitely be in the market for a new manager soon too. No offense, but what does Goldbridge know? The guy sits there and talks shit about everything that I post, and then I would turn right again and again and again and again. So obviously he does not know anything. I think last week he was asking someone why they were aggregating my news about the manager, saying that we didn't know, which is all turning correct once again. But yeah, I'm curious. if we end up with someone like Xabi, because I think there was a merit to the articles from the Daily Mail from Wheeler and such. Then maybe he said he'll take over. But then the biggest question is that going to be short or long term? Is that going to be short or long term? We don't know. That we don't know. If they were talking to him about it, is that short or long term? These are things that we don't know. So we'll find out. I still am curious because, as I said, they moved a little quicker than expected. That it might be, which I've been saying for the last hour and a half anyway. Just say Alonso and Hernandez. You're right. I know. I said I was going to do that. But anyway, by the end of the season, I figured, Frank and Amorim are two major targets. If it's now, I think Frank is certainly an option. If it's if they've gotten an answer from Xavi Hernandez, then that might be something. But we'll see if that's long term or short term. I would be quite nervous if they gave him 2.5 years. If they gave Xavi Hernandez a long-term contract, I'd be a bit nervous about that one. Like of the decisions that they can make, I understand a lot of them. I understand guys I understand why people want, why they like Thomas Frank. I understand Ruben Amorim. Xavi Alonso is a less understandable. Xavi Alonso, God, now I'm mixing myself up. Xavi Hernandez is a less understandable one for me. Of why would you? I could get keeping him in the short term, but less understandable for the long term. He'll be very passionate, and he will do all of that, and I think it could help us in the short term, but I'm just not sure he's the right guy in the long run. Maybe he'll help. Maybe he'll be the guy before the guy. You know what I mean? Maybe he'll be the guy before the guy. I don't know. Maybe he'd be the guy before the guy, but then isn't a short-term contract better? Xavi Hernandez as interim makes a lot of sense to me. And yeah, Barada knows him and all of that. And so it's the type of thing where I'm like, okay, yeah, if in the short term, if he could help us, that would make a lot of sense. In the long term, I'm just not sure. But if Ashworth is the guy picking, then maybe Xavi is just like a short-term solution that they could work out and then bring someone else in for the long term. Oh, Klopp. Take Klopp in a heartbeat. If they moved quicker, then why announce Ruud as interim instead of announcing? Yeah, Richie, and that's true. But maybe it just allows them to be more proactive. You know what I mean? Not yet, Sean. I usually don't get answers that quickly. Everybody's going to be digging at the moment, and it's going to take a little bit of time. Patience is definitely important. One of the things that I did get an answer back on, just rather interesting, is that in the games that Van Nistelrooy is managing, they want him to be very the word was ruthless in his decision makings about things. Pick players, drop players, be very ruthless in that respect based on it. And they think he'll be fair. They do think he'll be very fair in his picking of players, but he'll be very fair in it, but he's going to be very, very tough on it and hold some very even-keeled standards for everybody. Nobody is undroppable. Nobody has to play. None of that. So we'll find out. So we'll see what he does there. You know, the moments leading up to a new manager, even an interim, leading up to them picking their first team are always very interesting. And it'll be really interesting to see on Wednesday what happens. Just play Ugarte, I beg. You know, yeah, I know. I know. You know, we will see. And you know what's always very funny? You know what's always really funny as well when it happens with new managers is people get convinced that certain players will be dropped now. Oh, now we've got a new manager in. Now we've got a coach in, a real one, and they're going to drop that lazy bastard XYZ. And inevitably, the players who get dropped are not the ones that the fan base as a whole thinks are going to be dropped. Every single time it happens, and it always cracks me up. It is so funny. We'll see if that changes now. I think it's going to be mostly the same. I think you'll get some small changes. I don't think there's any players who haven't, like, tell me now if there's a single player on the pitch who you think hasn't been putting the effort in recently. That I'm curious about. When you watch them, I want to know a single player who has not been putting effort in from just an effort standpoint. You know, because Dallow's been very questionable on some of his defensive effort recently. Yeah, I would agree, which is kind of funny given that he'd built up over the last year and a half a reputation as being one of our hardest workers, for myself included. As soon as I got convinced about Dallo, he starts dropping stinkers again. And now I'm forced to go back to my original assessment of him, which is that he's kind of shit. Xerxes wasn't playing much recently, but yeah. He's also newer, and we don't know whether it's... Like with newer players, it's hard to tell whether it's effort or just not understanding. Dallo, yeah. I watched Garnacho give up on Wan-Bissaka every single time Wan-Bissaka went on a run the other day. Goes under the radar because you get a reputation like he tracks back and Rashford doesn't, but I've kind of seen the opposite. Garnacho let Wan-Bissaka run by him every single time against West Ham. Every single time. He did not follow him once. Rashford definitely... well, that's one question, though, too. Not to give him a hard time, but let's step back on that with the forwards, because one of the things that I think is true, we see it consistently, is that the forwards look like they have no idea what they're supposed to do in the press. Against Fenerbahce, constantly Rashford is over there like... He was running, but he was like pointing to other players, confused, what are we doing? Time and time again. And I think that is a concern, that a lot of times our forwards don't even know what they're doing in the press. And that might be, that might change, where we see things that look like lack of effort from some players that more is a lack of understanding, from Garnacho, from Rashford, from Xerxes, from all of them. Because I've seen that with our forwards relentlessly, that most of them, at times when it looks like lack of effort, to me, it's maybe more lack of understanding. I'm not sure, but I suspect that to some degree has been happening. Dallo's been inverting too much. Yeah, and that is also an issue. Maybe Dallo stays where he is, then we have less confusion instead of all the crazy stuff. Neville convinced we'll go to a back three. Maybe some insight. Look, if we go to a back three, if we start playing a back three under Van Nistelrooy, then... Amorim on his way, you know what I mean? Then that would make a lot of sense. We start setting up a back three for the future. And that's the one positive as well, I would say, about if you have Ruud as an interim and a long-term manager being appointed later, you could start setting up the team for that player, for that coach, rather, in the shape that they want to do. Any news? Yeah, good question. We have not heard anything about Mazraoui's injury. I hope we do soon. Euro, Matthias de Ligt, and Licha in a back three would be insane, but I actually think Maguire fits that back three better than Lissandro. Like, significantly better when he's healthy. Maguire's an amazing back three center back, especially if you have somebody like Lenny Euro who can run. And obviously Maguire did it in England, has always been elite in a back three for England. Yeah. Obviously a more short term because Maguire is older and all of that, but still, he probably would have a hell of a revival. Not that he wasn't good when he was fit this season, but he'd probably do extremely well in a back three. I know I've been live for ages today, and I'm going to continue it for a bit longer. I've got to do the podcast in a little, and then, you know, maybe we'll do another video later, but obviously, you know, watch the podcast and all that, right? But we'll see, man. We will see. This is it's intriguing times. It's intriguing times. Sitting on here trying to wait for an answer, by the way, is a futile attempt. You know, we're not getting something in 2 hours. It's never that quick. Never ever that quick. Oh God, what are these people doing? A lot of people really like Thomas Frank, huh? Thomas Frank is starting to become like that like that like under the radar pick. It's kind of funny. Just making sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, man. A complete 180 from no hair to long, luscious locks. Many people didn't rate Frank in the summer, though. What's changed? Because it was very easy to look at managers who are at smaller clubs and say they're shit. It's very easy to do that. Once you actually pay attention to them, you might see something a little bit different. And we've seen an interesting thing this year, right? Where Unai Emery has gone from, not this year, but has gone from failing at Arsenal to a smaller club in Spain to the Prem and is doing exceptional. You look at where Brighton are in the table with a first-year manager over there, right? You look at Chelsea appointing a manager from the Championship, you know, who won the Championship, to and having good results, right? You look at Brentford being a ninth, having good results with a lower manager. You look at Arne Slot coming from Feyenoord, you know, times are changing in the views of managers among many, many people. Yeah, Forest with Nuno, like, what the hell, man, right? Times are changing in people's views of manager, and I think that a lot of people are starting to realize, company with Bayern Munich, are starting to realize that it's much more about a stylistic fit. Do you have the right man than it is having the perfect man, okay? And that's true of every relationship, you know? The idealized image of, you know, some woman or some guy may not be the right person for you in a relationship. And the right person might be flawed, but might be perfect for you to have a healthy and happy relationship, where the things that matter are not always the things that you see on the surface. And I think that is something growing in this. And I think you see it in other sports. Careful. I know I made this comparison in Discord already. And obviously I'm talking about myself as a very flawed person. I think I'm right for for my wife, but not perfect in any sense. Okay. But you see this in other sports. I mean, the Lakers hired JJ Redick this year, right? For people who follow basketball. Yep. Lakers. Exactly. JJ Redick. And I hired JJ Redick this year. Very much not the perfect candidate, but he might be right for them. He might be right for them, and you see it a lot in sports. You actually do, and other sports I've noticed this, that it's not always the perfect guy. Sometimes it's the right guy for the job, and I think that matters. I think that matters. I think that matters a lot, and I think you know, remains to be seen how you end up, but you get there. I think you, on average, work better by getting the right person that matches things. So, you know, sometimes it's just about. JJ Redick is a former. No, I did not give the Batman quote, even though I could have. Okay, no, I'm not a Lakers fan. I'm just aware of it. JJ Redick is a former basketball player who was not a coach. It's his first year coaching and got one of the biggest jobs in sports. You know, it's hard. Yeah, it is. It is. But the right person at the right time is more important than anything else. And so that's the decision. I think that's bigger than the name or anything like that. You know what I mean? That's the thing that matters more than anything else. Sometimes it just doesn't work, you know? Yeah, exactly. But the right person is more important than trying to find the perfect person. And those are not always the same thing. And sometimes that's a part of growing up. That's a part of growing up. The perfect person is not always the right person. What was tweeted from my account? The garbage fast, the big test. Really. What is this? Thanks, PJ. That is funny. The car he was driven out of Carrington and today passed a big test early in the summer, given another lease of life only being a failure. Did the car he was driven on not pass inspection? Is that really? Oh my god, that is too funny. What a find that was. What a find that was. No, I'm a Bulls fan, okay? So I've experienced failure time and time again as a fan. Look at this. It comes from an article. Anthony went rogue on an unauthorized statement to an external channel regarding allegations of domestic abuse in England and Brazil. Did not go unnoticed by staff at United. The same channel coincidentally revealed Anthony-related team news. Members of the dressing room were never sold on Anthony and Højlund, Ten Hag's two most expensive buys. I wonder who that's talking about. Any ideas? Anybody? Any ideas? Beats me. Beats me. Mysteries that we will never know. That's an article. I just was reading things that are being sent to me. Oh, you can see it on. You can see it. I think it's from the MEN or something. They've been beefing for a while, I think. Whatever. I didn't. It's not my piece. That's from someone else. No, PJ has access to the tweet deck or the scheduler thing that schedules tweets. He's had it for ages. He's sent out stuff for me for a long time. Whenever he wants to. He's got my permission. Can't blame players for Ten Hag's terrible managing. Yeah, I agree. Does this change January transfer plans? It shouldn't. It shouldn't. It may make it a little easier. Don't have a barrier involved. Although financially, it makes it a little harder. Having to pay that money out. Yeah, I know. Luckhurst and Goldbridge have been fighting for beefing each other for a long, long time. That is for sure. They've got they're always throwing shots at each other. Yeah, Anthony had a sprained ankle. Ugarte Mount Bruno under Rude. I had tweets ready to go today on our forwards until Barada had the gall to interrupt me. You could still send it, I guess, with an adjustment. It depends. The money, it's not 17 million, by the way. But yeah, it's 13 million. It's 13 million, I believe. And I don't know how it's paid. You know, it could be on gardening leave. You know, not gardening leave, but it could be paid out over time. It could be paid out. We don't actually know. How that works, you know, but I think it's closer to 13 million. And the thing is, like I've said before, if you sack him now versus sack him in summer, this coming summer, there's no difference. But it's about hiring. If you have to spend a lot of money now, then that costs more. Yeah, I blocked by Lucker, so who cares, you know, whatever. Dawson says Frank, and I would listen. I've told you before to listen to Rob Dawson when he says shit, you know, and wonderful guy that we've had on video a number of times, and I told you before to listen to him. He you know, he had the Ashworth news first, remember, this summer. Let's see. He said yeah. Frank, my cat just shit in my suitcase. I've been packed. Is this a sign of we getting Southgate? Yes. Would we have not got Tuchel if we sacked Eric? No, we wouldn't. Tuchel didn't want us. Like Emery at Arsenal, some good coaches don't work at some clubs, and clearly, yeah. Thomas Frank is very high on United's list of replacements for Ten Hag. Dawson. Good. Yeah. Like I said, to me, the top two candidates kind of remaining that are even semi-available are Frank and Amorim. The top two. But we're going to see here. I mean, I'm quite curious. Ornstein has repeatedly said Southgate is not an option. It's true. He has. He said it many, many times. So, like, I don't even want to say it anymore because he's a better source than I am, and he said it many, many times. And so I would just leave that. Is there any reason Phil doesn't do live vids with you? No, we could definitely do them. It's just the biggest thing is both of us are working people in our U.S. time zone. We do this during the day. We do this during work. So I find a little more time, but it's matching it up to get it all right that is usually the issue. And it's usually a little bit easier for us to just get on a thing and record something real fast. You know, I say fast, but it's usually just easier. It's less setup, less preparation, no complications. You know, it's just easier. That's the main reason. Iraola or Xavi Hernandez for me. Interesting. Bielsa out this season. We did get Ashworth when a lot thought it wasn't possible, so maybe we can get someone you think. Maybe, man, and that's what's real curious here is that they clearly can do some business. They moved faster than expected. 6 hours long. Oh my God, yeah. I mean, between Phil, I know on a live, between how distracted I get by messages and Phil, and his reactions to things, I think it would be very interesting as to that. Mike Phelan is also tweeting out shots against Ten Hag. Mike Phelan would love to come back to United. I don't think he should come back to United. Phil would crash out in under 5 minutes. Yeah. It would be fairly entertaining. It would be fairly entertaining. Has anybody else actually said anything? Because I'm not trying to. I don't want to ignore people who are knowledgeable. If they've been saying much, nobody else besides Thomas Franks. Nobody else has really confirmed anything about Xavi except the Daily Mail, right? Has anybody else confirmed anything about Xavi Hernandez? Yeah, Ballbag ruled out Xavi. I saw that, and I honestly have no idea if he's even half decent as a source at this point in time. I know, and he might be, but Spanish sources are denying it is quite interesting. But I thought that guy was quite unreliable. So I you know. Why did Tuchel not want us? He just didn't like our job. He didn't like our job. Didn't like the job. It's that simple. So we'll see, guys. I'll stay live for like 10 more minutes, and then I gotta go to the bathroom before I do my podcast with Phil. It's been an hour, and it's 2 hours. Holy cow. 2 hours. It's gonna be a miserable rewatch for anybody else who has not watched this. You've been here for 2 hours hanging out with me? Hang on a sec. How you like me now, Brady? How you like me now? Where's your blue name now, Brady? Yeah. Where's your blue name now? It's that easy. All right, I'll give it back to you. Rudy never had a blue tick. Now he doesn't have a blue name. Anyway, no, I'm just happy that, we are. I am happy today because even like everything else aside, just to kind of end this off, this live stream off, I am happy today because since they made the U-turn in summer, I knew this was cursed, and I tried as hard as I can to be as positive about it through summer, through everything else. But this was a dead from the start. It was bad. And last season, when everything was miserable, I had a lot of hope because I knew that at the end of the season they were going to let him go, and they were working on a lot of improvements. when they didn't, it was just like pointless, pointless. And whether it's even Ten Hag's fault or not, obviously it is to a large degree, but either way, the way that everything carried out made this a pointless exercise to me, and it was doomed from the start. So I'm just happy that it's over, because we should have just started fresh anyway. And I think it would have been a lot better in summer to just say, look, we're just starting over. New owners, new management, new everything. Let's just start fresh. And that would have given us a good baseline to work off of and say, okay, we know we're not going to be amazing at the start, but we're going to be building something. If you watch like my post-match videos and things like that, the biggest frustrations that I've had, is that we weren't building anything under Eric. And the discussion, like the choices of the team, the people that we were picking, the way that we were setting up the team, the chopping and changing, all of it was just making it all a waste. I can do with a tough season of manager coming in, a tough season, trying to build a team properly and working in the basics and laying foundations and losing games. I can deal with it. I'm okay with that. I can handle that if you see the foundations being laid. But when you're picking teams and doing things that have no connection to where the club is going, then it's really just wasting time. It's really, really just wasting time. So, that's it. So I'm quite happy, because I think this was always necessary. Because it was a new group, because it was a new owner, because they need their guy to build things in their image. That's the reality of it. And until they made this choice, and until they got this in, until they get a new manager in the door, there was no chance of building this club in their image, which is what they have to do for us to be successful. You have to be able to go top down. This is what we want. 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 We couldn't do that. We didn't do that. So it felt even more like we were just wasting time. And now we're not. Now we're not wasting time. Now at least we are getting, we can put the right person in place to build something. And as long as they're laying the foundations properly, because look, Van Nistelrooy's not going to be under pressure to get to win. He's going to want to do what is best for the club and for the long term. And that's what we need right now, more than wins. And the funny part is, it will turn into more wins. Not even in the longer term. But if we just did 10 games in a row of picking the right team the way that we wanted to play, and you could rotate a little bit in between, but picking the right team, going the right way for the future, for how we want to play, then it would improve. And I think we'd end up winning more games than this whole every game-to-game management of things. So, yeah. That's it. That's what I've got. That's what I wanted to talk about. We've gone over everything today. I will definitely be back whenever, wherever, the podcast we will do. But then I will be back as well to we will be back as well to go over anything. So watch the podcast, and then I'll get on. I'll do more videos. Yeah, I'm Shakira. Yeah, I'll do some videos, lives, etc. through the week as soon as I hear everything. Yes. Have a good day, everyone. Yeah. Yes. Have a good day. So to all of you, and definitely, thanks for hanging out for 2+ hours. The majority of you. It's been fun. And hopefully we'll have more good times to come. And I'm gonna plug this again, but for all of you here, come join my watch-alongs. the link below. You can just come hang out. They're fun, even when things are painful, and I think they'll be very fun now that we have a new manager to, well, even just on an interim basis. I think it'll be even more fun. So just come hang out with me. Come join. It's great. All right. Thank you all. Have a good one, Ed. Have a good one, Paul, Sharon, Connor, Sibusio, Sean. Yeah, have a good one. We're not going to do a live. I mean, I'll talk to him, but I don't think we will. We're going to record in about 15 minutes, and he's got a lot of shit to do as well. So we're just going to do it what works, okay? Have a good one, everybody. Ali, site admin. Yeah, good names. Aaron, Sam J, MK, everybody. See you later. See you later. Have a good rest of your day. We'll be back. There's plenty more to come. Bye, Riddy.